All right, we are live. Happy Thursday. It's Cinco de Mayo. Bethany Dotson, relationship coach, trauma sensitive yoga therapist, and I'm going live with you today to talk about and really ask you the question, are you blind to Mr. Right? And this is for you if you are a single professional career-minded woman, but when you look over your history of relationships, you realize that you have a pervasive pattern of staying too long with emotionally unavailable partners or even narcissistic partners. So today, I'm super excited to talk to you about this subject. I have 2 points to make. If you catch this on replay, hit hashtag replay. Let me know that you let me know if you have questions. Drop questions in the comment box. If you're here live with me today, let me know that you're here. Say hello, ask questions. I'm here to answer your questions. But I really want to talk about this concept. If you identify with being an overachiever, maybe you overextend yourself in relationships. You might overextend yourself at work. You might have a hard time setting boundaries in your life. You may identify with attracting relationships that leave you wanting more. You don't get your needs met. And if you've gone through that pattern for decades or the majority, if not your entire adult life, it can be a very, very, very challenging pattern to break. It's not impossible, but it does require proven research-backed methods for healing complex trauma, and then accountability and taking and making empowering choices and taking action steps forward that are out of your comfort zone in the world of dating and relationships. So if the question I want to ask you, are you blind to Mr. Right? So the first point that I want to offer you today is that one way that you could be blind or inadvertently missing a great partner is due to your own unhealed trauma. When you are in relationships that involve manipulation, cheating, gaslighting, things that you know it's not right in your heart, but there's this bigger part of you that keeps plowing forward anyway. When you have that patterning, it is very easy to miss Mr. Right because you are focused. Your focus usually when you leave these relationships is in a number of places. Primarily what I see is that people spend a lot of time living in the rearview mirror. There's still, I just got off the phone with somebody today actually, who 4 years after her, abusive marriage was still wanting to talk about all of the betrayal and all of the terrible things that her ex-husband did to her and her family. And so when we go through trauma like this in relationship where you were supposed to feel safe, our brains change. And our brains change in that we are constantly in a state of fight or flight. Now, a lot of people don't feel necessarily like they're in a state of fight or flight. They're not running for their lives. They're not being chased by a bear. But how this shows up in real life, if you've had narcissistic abuse or relational trauma, is having a hard time setting boundaries. You feel like you never have enough time in your day. You have a hard time telling people no. You constantly question yourself when it comes to making decisions. Instead of feeling confident in your choices, you spend days, months, or sometimes years spinning your wheels, analyzing the pros and cons, weighing what option works best, what you do, getting tons of feedback from outside sources outside of yourself. And this produces a really significant paralyzing place called analysis paralysis. So that's the way that trauma may show up for you in your life. You also may be more prone to caretaking other people because caretaking other people feels good. You get an emotional reward by helping somebody. And I see this a lot with clients that I work with who are in helping professions. A lot of people that we work with here are in healthcare, they're teachers, they're therapists. Sometimes they're lawyers, they're in the legal or financial services fields. They love helping people solve their problems, but they often help the wrong partners in romantic relationships at the expense of losing themselves, losing their self-worth and their emotional well-being in that process. So the biggest way that you will be blind to Mr. Right is through unhealed trauma. And some of the real life ways that this might trip you up is that you might want to start dating again, but your mind will be so snagged in a fight or flight state of what could go wrong. I'm terrified of meeting another narcissist. I'm afraid I'm going to push somebody else away. I don't know how to trust myself. All of these feelings, this experience starts bubbling to the surface when you might try dating again. Or you might get into a dating scenario with someone new, but you're not quite sure if that's a red flag or if that's your intuition or if that's nothing to worry about. And what happens is that you might, and I find this so many times when I work with clients, they get in this state of backing and forthing. I'm not really sure, I'm not really sure. And they're in their head and they're not embodied. They're not in their body. And when you're in your head, you're really living from a trauma response. And this happens for two primary reasons. When you were in a bad relationship and you walked on eggshells and you weren't really sure if it was going to work, you were hoping he would change, you were hoping he would change, you were hoping things would get better. Your fight or flight center in your brain becomes hyperactive. It becomes more prone to seeing threats, to looking out for what could go wrong, to protecting you, to being very logical and analytical. And the danger zone with this is that this can cause you to ignore your gut, to ignore your intuition. And if you have 20, 30 years or a lifetime of being with the wrong people, getting into relationships that betray you or harm you emotionally, if you exit those and you're more prone to overanalyzing and constantly questioning yourselves, your brain has been changed to be more overactive in a fight or flight way. Your fight or flight centers are firing more than they need to. And when that happens, the scary part about that is that you're going to be more prone to ignoring your intuition again, because it doesn't feel safe to listen to your body and what your intuition is telling you. And the reason for this is that back in the day, when you were in bad relationship, number 1, 2, or 3, or when you were with your narcissistic husband who you married and stayed with for 25 or 30 years, you had to cut off part of your intuition. You had to stop listening to that voice inside. And if you did that and you've been doing that for your entire life, it can all of a sudden feel very scary to start listening to that voice because it's uncomfortable. It's out of the unknown. And when people have stopped listening to their intuition and stopped trusting themselves and instead live up here in their head and overanalyze and constantly question, this becomes kind of a safe space. Nobody can get in because you are not emotionally available, because you're living up here and you're ignoring what's going on down here. You're disconnected. So when you have that patterning from trauma, it can cause you to overanalyze situations that may not be abusive at all. I see a lot of people who exit toxic relationships and they start dating again, and they can't make it past the first or second date before they pick the other person apart. They find things wrong with that person. And this is because they are hyperactive. They are looking for threats. Their fight or flight center is on high alert. And subconsciously, they're looking to pick things apart with somebody so that they don't have to get close, because getting close emotionally feels like a threat. Because when they wanted to get close emotionally in the past, they were met with gaslighting, manipulation, betrayal, and pain. So when you have unhealed trauma, your fight or flight center is more overactive in your brain. You're going to be more prone to living in a very analytical, logical place, analyzing, weighing all the pros and cons, because that gives you a sense of safety and control. But the downside and the real danger zone with living like that is that you are often still bypassing your intuition because you've had to cut off your intuition for so many years to stay in a bad relationship. And so how this might show up is you avoiding dating, because the moment you start to think about that, you start to get anxiety and, oh, what could go wrong? What could go wrong? You start having a trauma response. Basically, you start feeling triggered. Or you do start dating, but then when you're in relationship with somebody, you immediately get paralyzed with, is that a red flag? Is that not a red flag? I'm not really sure. And what happens is that you're not fully emotionally present in that relationship. And if you're not fully emotionally present, what's happening really is that you're emotionally unavailable. And if you are emotionally unavailable because you don't know how to start tuning in and to feel connected with your intuition, with your gut instinct, with who you really are, with the feeling like a confident woman, then you're going to magically attract partners who are also disconnected from their feelings. And everybody that I talk to, everybody has spent decades settling for men, hoping and hoping and hoping that they'll meet them halfway. And then they desperately want someone who's emotionally available, but usually what they are blind to is their own emotional unavailability. So your unhealed trauma will be the number one way you can be blind to Mr. Right and inadvertently block Mr. Right, even though you might want a healthy relationship and to share your life with someone. If you don't fully heal the demons in your closet, and I'll talk about how to do that in a minute, what's likely is you're going to repeat a pattern, because those patterns are deeply, deeply ingrained in your subconscious mind. And it's how your body recognizes love. Your body, on some level, actually feels more comfortable with chaos, with a sense of it's good, then it's bad. It's good, then it's bad, with this roller coaster, than with feeling and actually receiving true emotional connection and true emotional intimacy. Famous psychotherapist once said that people who attract and get into narcissistic or get into relationships with narcissists tend to have their own fears around emotional intimacy. Being with someone who cannot give them what they need, being in a relationship that has built-in distance, and being with a narcissistic partner definitely has built-in distance, on some level feels safer. So heal your unhealed trauma. Really dig deep, get the courage to do that work, and I'll talk about how in just a second. The second way that you will be blind to Mr. Right, and it's very closely linked to unhealed trauma, is hopium. What I call hopium. What I've learned from another coach that I work with. Hopium, hoping things get better, hoping that one day you meet the right person, hoping that if God wants you to have someone, you will have someone. Now, hopium is a really, really dangerous place to be as well, because when you were likely in a toxic relationship and you started to have that awakening, or maybe you knew the first couple of weeks or the first couple of months that things didn't quite feel right with your ex or your former spouse, what happens is that people get sucked into the seductive trap of hoping it gets better. I hope it gets better. I was just talking to someone this week who had spent a quarter of a century with somebody and knew very, very early on in that relationship that he wasn't treating her well. And she knew that in her heart, but she hoped and hoped and hoped that he would come around. If she just did enough, if she just behaved better, that he would finally meet her halfway. And I want to talk about hopium is highly addictive. Hoping someone changes is essentially codependency. And codependency in many schools of thought is called love addiction. It's an addiction, because you're hoping and hoping and hoping. You're banking all of your dreams and your future, hoping someone changes. It's like, a heroin addict shooting up again, hoping to get the same feeling that he did on his first high. So it can be a very distracting, subtly destructive, insidious trap that many people stay in for way too long. And if you were in a 10 or 20 or 30-year marriage, or you've been in relationship after relationship after relationship with an emotionally unavailable and emotionally narcissistic and you have probably hoped your way through those relationships, and hope will not change your outcome in the future. Healing your trauma and properly making empowering actions and choices that are outside of your comfort zone, little by little by little by little, that is what changes behavior long term. I've spoken with way too many women who have spent years, sometimes decades, in talk therapy processing their feelings, but they still meet the wrong men. They still walk around in their life overextending themselves, overachieving, people pleasing, having a hard time setting boundaries. These, again, are all trauma responses. And what we know in research is that traditional therapy, talking about your past, trying to process the feeling and talk your way through it in the rearview mirror, does not change your brain programming. You need a trauma-informed method. So what exactly does that look like? Trauma-informed methods incorporate your body and what's going on in your body. We call this somatic work or mind-body work. And the benefit of doing mind-body work or somatic work is that it starts to retrain your brain to no longer live in fight or flight. And it starts to retrain the part of your brain responsible for tuning in and trusting your intuition to start turning on more. When you are living in fight or flight, when you feel like you never have enough time, when you are people pleasing, when you feel resentful all the time, you are living in a stress response or a state of subtle fight or flight. Again, not running from a bear, but you're kind of on high alert. And the more you live your life on high alert about what could go wrong, the less in tune you are with your intuition. And this becomes often an insidious, unconscious habit that follows many, many women around in their lives. So using a somatic method, trauma-informed method, something that's research-based for healing trauma. And again, 86% of all trauma that people experience happen in a relationship setting. So a relationship, think about that. A relationship, especially an intimate relationship, is the one place where you are hoping to feel accepted, where you're hoping to feel a sense of belonging. And the sad truth is that unhealed trauma causes many people to get into dysfunctional relationship, and experience more betrayal, and feel more insignificant, more separate, more like something's wrong with them. And all of those feeling states over time do not get a healthy relationship. So you really have to use a trauma-informed method to do that. The second piece that is really important, in my opinion, is investing in coaching or mentoring. Coaching is designed to get you moving forward on your timeline. A lot of people sometimes stay in therapy, and I was one of these people for many, many years, because it feels good to vent about the problems of the day. It feels good to go to a professional person who's neutral, not a friend or family member, where you can really, in a safe space, talk about all the problems that are going on in your life. But what can be a downside of doing that is that therapy often lacks the accountability to move someone forward and challenge their thinking and their subconscious belief systems. Most of the time, unless you're doing hypnotherapy, traditional talk therapy is not deep enough to change your subconscious beliefs. And your subconscious beliefs are 96% responsible for the choices that you make in your life, especially romantic relationships. So, using trauma informed methods, combining that with coaching or investing in mentorship that's designed to get you out of your comfort zone little by little by little, designed to help you put this into practice in real life and make empowering choices that will probably feel difficult in the beginning in your dating and your love life, are really key in developing lasting transformation. So you have to reprogram your brain and your body out of the trauma response with a somatic or trauma informed method, and then coaching and working with somebody that's going to help you get past your blind spots, help you make empowering, right choices, help you take risks. Because when we've had trauma, taking risks often feel overblown, and we tend to make it worst case scenario everything. So if you are single professional, you want to overcome a lifelong pattern of attracting and staying too long with the wrong partners. You want to overcome your pattern of overanalyzing and questioning everything, of being paralyzed in your head and not trusting yourself fully. And you ultimately, in the future, want to have a healthy, intimate relationship, and you never had that before and you're not really sure how to do that, book a call. Go to bethanydotson.com/talk. We will get you very clear through questions. We ask a series of questions to help you have an awakening on that call. Sometimes that process is not entirely comfortable, but the call is designed to help you have a breakthrough on what exactly needs to change for you to start seeing lasting results. If after that call we feel, or during that call rather, we feel that we can help you, and we get you really, really clear and connected on what you want in your life, the dream, the outcome, whether it's I just want to feel happy in my life every day. I don't want to ruminate about my ex, or I'm ready to start dating again. I want to have a healthy relationship. We're going to get you very, very clear on what it is that you really, really want. A lot of people with unhealed trauma tend to minimize what they're capable of. So we're going to work really hard with you to get you really connected to what you want on that call. And then if we can help you on that call and you want our help, we'll talk about the details of working together, what exactly that looks like, what's involved in the process, and give you everything that you need to make a healthy decision. So if you are tired, if you are sick and tired of being, thank you, Pam, if you are sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you want at some point in your life to have a healthy relationship, you want to feel confident in the dating process again, you want to feel confident opening your heart, and you recognize that your entire life you have shortchanged yourself in the relationship department. This is not something that gets better by itself. Trust me. I've seen it too many times. If anything, it often gets worse. More loneliness or more attracting the wrong people and hoping it gets better. So book a call, go to bethanydotson.com/talk. We will talk to you again soon, probably next week. Have a beautiful day, and talk to you soon. Have a good one.